How did your interest in sports statistics lead to a career in trading?
At a young age, I loved sports, right, in baseball specifically, and loved the stats. So I'd read the box scores every day and whatnot. That was like 10 years old. But then about 13 years old, I noticed the business section right next to that. And yeah, started looking at the commodities and the futures specifically. Started following them every day, and I really saw that I loved the movement of it. I would day trade them in my head, 13, 14 years old, just trying to pick the momentums and whatnot. And I knew that that was the path that I wanted to take, was to get into that as a career. Looking for universities, I went to the University of Illinois, and specifically they had an ag program for CBOT products. And so I focused on that sector, and every class I took was geared towards trading. Like, it was with a specific trading when I graduated, specifically at the Board of Trade. When I was in college, I took a class. It was sophomore year. Took a class in what was it? It was a finance class, and we got $25,000 to do simulated trading. So the internet was just starting to get going then, and we had an account, simulated trading. You were supposed to start the semester, $25K, and do trades like, oh, corn is in a drought, and you think prices are going to go up, and how do you hedge it and whatnot. Anyways, I turned the $25,000 into $250,000. I took first place, but when I submitted the paperwork, my teacher was like, "This isn't what you were supposed to do." I go, "Well, I'm taking advantage of the movements." I would get in there and I did a bunch of trades. I had 10 pages of trades. I liked the movements, and bought a 100 gigahertz computer to open an account. I was lucky enough that my parents saved up. They didn't know investing or anything, but they saved up $40,000 for me to go to school with. I opened an account. They could trust me. I opened an IRA when I was 14 years old for my summer working. So I was always risk averse. It was a Ameritrade account, and I traded then in university. And so I would go, and in between classes, this is mid to late 90s, and in between classes I would go back to my apartment and place trades and whatnot. I had a stats class, and the stats teacher, I said, "Hey, I gotta hurry up with this because there's a Fed announcement today." He's like, "I don't care about that." I didn't do real well on that test, but I was able to get home and back to the apartment in time to trade the Fed. So I knew that everything I was doing was geared towards that. I was lucky enough then to be able to graduate with $50,000. So I was able to pay for all of school and work my way through that.
What was your experience trading online during the early days?
Ameritrade or E-Trade or any of those ones, you'd have to type in the limit, the order fully, submit it to the market, and then get filled. So a lot of times, the market was wide, so you'd want to work the bid and not just market order in. So that was part of what I was doing, is always working that order lower and hoping to get filled later. And I wouldn't hang on long to any of those trades. It was only one trade, which I still have today. I bought 100 shares of Microsoft. Still have that from that original college days. Other than that, everything was, I didn't carry anything more than a couple months, really.
Did you trade commodities during your time in college?
I was 18, 19, 20 years old. You couldn't open an account having that also, right? Having the ability to trade that, especially like Ameritrade, you'd have to use a broker. I had an account opened with Merrill Lynch, and the guy wouldn't take my trades. He goes, "I can't take your trades. You're under 21 years old." I'm like, "All right, well, you lost that business then." I started to look into the commodities more, and I got a job at the CME in the Eurodollar pit. So I was in the Eurodollar futures pit in the summer, and I would sit there, and I loved the energy and what, even though summers were slower, but I loved the energy that there was, especially during numbers, non-farm. And I would paper trade all the time, and I'd give my boss then the results. I'd say, "Hey, this is what I did to the local." And he goes, and at the end of the summer, he came to me and goes, "All right, I'll give you a $50,000 salary to be a clerk, and I'll have you trading, hopefully within a year or two." I was excited. I was ready to go do that. Luckily, my parents talked me out of it, and the wisdom of your parents, you know. I needed those extra accounting and finance and all the other classes that I'm using on a daily basis now. Plus, I was making pretty good money trading online while I was in school. I started really getting involved then in looking for jobs that were associated with commodities. So I found a company called RTG, which was a silver local and a German banker. And so the German banker had Eurex exposure, and Eurex in 1998, Eurex was launched, and it was 100% electronic. I went in, I saw them trade a non-farm, I saw the DAX specifically, and I'm like, this is for me. I accepted the job with them. Back then there was the Eurex exam, and it was more difficult than the 3, but easier than the 7, was somewhere in between there, options heavy, but because of my studying and majors, I was able to take the exam in a week, and I was actually trading 2.5 weeks after graduation. I was up and trading. So I was trading, they were starting, there was only 5 traders at the time trading the DAX, but I saw this other product called the Euro stocks, and it had less movement, so tick value on the DAX was 25, Euro stocks was 10, and I looked at the movement, I looked at it, I go, I like this product. So I started trading that. During that time then, they would bring in other traders for me to mentor, right? And so I would teach other traders coming in. I mean, I was 21 years old at this time, teaching a bunch of people how to trade that market. And that room grew from 5 people to 70 people or so within a year time frame. Trading from Chicago into Frankfurt, yeah. Okay? And when the market started being volatile, you'd click, and everything was fine, but when volatile, you'd click, and a coffee cup would come up. And it would have the little smoke coming up, and you wouldn't know if you got a fill or not. And you can't keep clicking, because then you're still clicking into the market. So you had to just wait for your coffee cup, whether or not you get a fill. And sometimes it was 3 seconds, sometimes it was like minutes, and you're just waiting. This drove me nuts. Especially, I was a very active trader. So that first year, my trading was essentially like market makers now, where I just had orders on both sides of the book. I was actively just trading back and forth. I was anywhere from 5 to 10% on some days of the volume in the product. And I'm 95% sure I was the first North American trader on that product, on the Euro Stoxx 50 futures. But these coffee cups drove me nuts, and so in a week's notice, I was 22, making good money, I got up and moved to Germany. It was a vibrant community there in the late 90s, early 2000s. There was the Battle of, the Battle of the Bund it was called. Life had, I think in 96, 97 had 67% of the volume, and by 2000 it was 0% they had. So the Eurex won, and all that volume moved. Frankfurt had all these expats and Brits and just everyone coming from all over. I had friends from all over the world living there.